Heiteres Büro verraten. Ja, das ist man schon mal so. Du machst so. Mischgewebe die erste. Action. Okay, good evening. My name is Guido Huebner, Rainer Frei. We are 20% of das Synthetische Mischgewebe. Today we fixed a date which we have never done before, so because we don't know when we have started this project, because in the very beginning I made, so I come from the visual arts, I made little installations like theater sets, worked with light, with different objects, small motors, moving objects. I met someone from the Kassettenkombinat at the time, and he proposed me to release a cassette, which was a bit strange for me. It was like, let's release just the light of this installation, for which there's no support, but it was kind of an extraction of something which for me was something kept together. So I waited a little bit, made the first cassette, and I named this cassette Synthetisches Mischgewebe, which was a title. And just beside on the cover I wrote my address at the time. So the distributors at this time in Berlin had been people like Zensor and Grafhaufen. I don't know if these names are still familiar. Whatsoever, this name stuck somehow, and people thought that Synthetische Mischgewebe would be the name of the project and not the title of this specific cassette release. So I made some concerts alone with other people, Synthetisches Mischgewebe, and then I changed to das Synthetische Mischgewebe because it was a time of einstürzende Neubauten, tödliche Doris, so it was a possibility to, it was also Deutsche Bank, and so it was an easy move. So when we say 86, it's just because it's the oldest photo of the series. Some people amongst you have already recognized that on older photos you seem to be younger. Don't know how this works actually. So this was, it's easier to say in German than in English. It is the kitchen of the kitchen. The kitchen was a performance space in New York, and they had a kitchen, which was actually not a performance place, but they had a kitchen like a toilet. And so this is the kitchen of the kitchen, which in English is a bit strange to say. Die Küche des Kitchen, it's much better, whatsoever. I don't know what this poster behind is. 5 windows. I don't know, kind of mobile on top. Hard to say. From left to right, like in jazz groups, Thomas Otto Walter Richter, who is not anymore amongst us. He's still living, I mean. But at least I haven't heard anything. Okay. Isabelle Chemin, so she was from Bordeaux, she's still from Bordeaux, but she's not anymore in Bordeaux. She made the art school there, came to Berlin, she has a writer friend here in Berlin, returned to Bordeaux, said, Bordeaux, and came back.
Remember it's this guy here?
Yeah, shortly. There's a strange guy in the middle, I have no idea whatsoever. On the right side, it's the guy from Isabel now. So it's a bit like Dallas. Huh? How to- so he is actually from theater, and Isabel, besides his art school thing, also has done a lot of pretty big theater pieces, actually, and a lot of performances also. And the very first thing of her we saw was a Super 8 film made by her father, where she was walking down a wall from the art school in Bordeaux. So it was like fire. So it was like the, wie sagt man, Bewerbung? Was ist denn Bewerbung in English? Yeah. And yeah, there's this guy in this boy's look on the right side. And this was half of Mischgewebe once. So there was an Italian guy even, while we played with two Japanese Buto dancers. And today the group is, so I live in Caen, in Normandy, in France. So the guy with whom I played last week in Cologne and in Hamburg, who lives in Caen as well, a couple of other people doing video, doing performance things. Isabel is now in Grasse, which is in, close to Cannes, so Mediterranean. Berlin, and the writer who wrote most of the text on the covers on records, CDs, and for many of our performances, left Berlin after 13 years, something like this, yeah, and is now close to Freiburg.
Still?
Yeah. So actually, we met three people, French people who made the military service here, and all three remained in Berlin for many years to come. And so all this just to say that the group is nothing very stable. So and sometimes we do not work together for a bunch of years and then met again. So depends on the different project. So we continue with photos more or less in a chronological order, and so there's some people disappearing and coming back, and it's all nice. Berlin, it's the capital of Germany. 86, 87, still now. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
Eiszeit-Gegend.
Was a place in Kreuzberg. Still?
Exists.
Yeah? Still exists? Oh.
Yeah.
Eyesight is keeping on quite long. Was our first performance with Isabelle Chemin, with Jean-René Lassalle, so the guy now in Freiburg writing most of the text, with Thomas Otto Walter Richter, with Rainer, with a girl playing trombone and things. She was a neighbor of other guys. So. Looks pretty much 80s, which is because it's pretty much 80s. Really performance text, not just a concert. Besides one person with this strange reverb on this white thing was a reverb at the time, a Beth. But all other musicians had been in the space, not on the stage. It was what was the name of this festival? It was organized by people from a group called Fiction. With there was Kasiba playing in groups like this. So Jean-René Lassalle, it's not Laurit. It's Jean-René Lassalle. And today he looks much more like Laurit than on this photo. So this is a bit later on Gleisdreieck. So can you stop me? So this is a very particular thing because last year and at the beginning of this year we somehow restaged this performance, which we have done without any audience, because Gleisdreieck at this time was an area which was actually owned by the former Democratic Republic of Germany. All these parts had been All this terrain had been parts of the S-Bahn and owned by them. It had not been protected like the wall, but still people with German Shepherds and Kalashnikov once walking around at least once an hour. So we had been working this time with a gallery called Paranorm. They had a nice video camera, which at the time was a bit rare. And so we made a performance on this place, which actually is this kind of disc turning wagons, train wagons, and locomotives, also not locomotives, S-Bahn locomotives, I don't know. So you see, these are the parts of where the rails are. This, K, what K is not K, it's French. What's Gleis? Nee, nicht Gleis, also wo man steht. Bahnsteigkante. Yeah, platform, it's a platform. So and there are a bunch of objects which we have like this column, which we have recently used again. So, and this copperhead also, which is actually from a distillation. So in this copperhead, one tube in, one tube out, it's alcohol distillation. So this performance we have done without audience, but actually what we have done later on in New York, in Zaragoza, in this gallery, Jard, and other had been very close to it. Yeah, stop. Okay. So this was kind of key work because in one hand, yeah, we have done it on our own. There had only been video, audio, and photo documentation. We already played before in a bit strange places. We have made a performance in the Neuköllner Stadtwald. Nothing else happens there before besides old people swimming in hot water. Was a bit strange to organize, but we have done a performance as a photos later. The reverb.
That's Airport Tempelhof. We had our rehearsal room, and we wait when the other bands are gone. We take the
They
floor.
never came.
We are not at our.
Looks pretty much like a toilet door in a Starplet store. So the best. So it's not a fiction. It's I have the proof now. So we played this performance. So the musician had been around the pool. Jean with the text on one of the small ends. Isabelle was performing swimming, and with different swimming styles representing different characters, people in the story. And we played our instruments around, looking pretty much like this, a bit less maybe. And that was it for pretty much a while in Berlin. So we played in yeah, you see, yeah, still there. The frame, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we come to this other stuff later. So during this time in Berlin, actually we never played in West Germany for whatever reason, but we made it to Bordeaux. We made several tours in Holland. We played in Budapest in '86 also. Things like this, and at the end in New York. So this was St. Hertogenbosch in Holland. The people of W2, who are now in Rotterdam. We played there in Arnhem, in Eindhoven, in Venlo, in Maastricht, in Hoes, and a place like this. So pretty much a lot of objects with motors playing by themselves. And yes, always performance elements and actually very few pure concerts, I would say. Yeah, this guy Hatzef, he's not here. He's from Berlin. Well, he lived quite a long time in Berlin as well, still is. And during many performances we have done, concerts, he turned himself into a sculpture with plaster, gips. Which
That's
was
Rotterdam.
pretty good. Is this Rotterdam?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what a memory.
Banker was placed.
So actually in all these places we had quite some time to set up our stuff. So this historically is Bordeaux, which is actually before we met Isabelle. This was arranged by Jean-René Lassalle, but she came to Berlin a few times later on. So here Hatzef in full action. It's always funny when for a concert in the 80s, people ask you, what do you need? And you say, plaster, plastic bags, water, cans. It was also a good reason to play last.
It's the same bucket.
Yeah.
Bucket.
It's not the Elephant Man. And in Budapest he got stiff because they had really a good light show. Because in Budapest you play in the place like everybody plays. So you see a concert with your name, and besides it's Motorhead and Status Quo, and you play in the same place, and it's loud and they have really full light, and in half an hour he got dry, which is actually very dangerous because it's pretty hot under the glass there. So Zaragoza was our first thing in Spain. Very important because after this we had been invited to Barcelona just for tourism, and a few times later on it was our postal address, or became our postal address. So always this kappa hat. Yeah, this one is very. You want to explain? It's a light, a dark room stuff.
Dark room, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe stop here. We explain them.
So that's a kitchen in New York again. Perfect place for our performance because we had a performance in a room we prepared as a dark room. It was just red light, and we had the only light was from two refrigerators.
So two white lights.
So yeah. And we had one of this American style
Size.
size,
European.
and there
So,
you
can you stop here, maybe? So these two refrigerators had been in a diagonal, but face to face, with one performer and one musician to each other, and they'd been connected by these lines with red light and elastic cord. So when the audience came in, because we have no photos really from the performance, we have only the photos from the preparation. When the audience came in, actually they had been opposed because they had been on one side and the other side between the two refrigerators. So we had really two armies, and it was also the story because actually it was kind of Antigone confrontation. And yeah, you can explain with the photo stuff.
Yeah, we had rolls photo material, and that was it's the same like here. Installation.
Typical
Preparing.
typical working position. So can you stop here? Just back to New York. So we used photo paper in the performance. Isabelle and her friend in one scene, so they fight all the time, and they had a big saw blade, which you cut stones in the street, some 7 kilo. You don't get to America today with a saw blade like this. Anyway, we put, so during the performance she put developer liquid on this saw blade, and in one scene she threw it on the photo paper and put it away, and then the refrigerator doors get open, and then in front of the audience this photo developed and became black. And we still have the photo.
Yeah, it was hard to get it out of America.
It's still working. It's still getting brown now. But so it's very important. Like this Gleisdreieck thing, we use actually very easily available materials for more or less everything we do, and nothing is actually hidden. We never have worked in the performance with technicians who do the sound or who do the lighting. It has always to be integrated in what we do. So if we need light, we use objects where light is, but hardly in the performance we use a spot or something, and a guy behind hidden. This may be because I come from the visual arts, so I've never done art school, but when I was very little, I was always in drawing classes in the museums and things. And for me it's very important that the audience can actually see a relation between an action and maybe a sound or something visual. I wouldn't never really hide something. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily understandable, and it doesn't mean that because you see something that it corresponds necessarily to the result which is given. You can maybe you expect something else, and maybe even we expect something else in time. So we have a little experience now. But we have always worked with very simple thing, which changed a little bit in Barcelona, because there we started with what was at the time new technologies. So for one performance we had an industrial robot, but also there the technician was on the stage. So besides, but the audience could see him. They moved, so there had been movements of the robot and the performance. There had been cameras, but never anything was really hidden. So, but this was a kind of special period. But anyway, things go a bit in a loop again. So this was the first performance in Barcelona on the
Fish market.
on the market of the Ramblers, in the fish selling part. Some people may know it. So you have all the stands arranged in two circles with tables and a kind of crossway in between. And
first we had the story, and then we found the place, and it was absolutely perfect.
it was like Gleisdreieck,
Yeah.
actually. Everything was already there. So what's on the arms is congria, I don't know what it is, stockfish.
Yeah.
What is stockfish? I don't know in English. Fish, cane fish, I don't know. So which is actually a very nasty looking grey fish, which they dry, and for drying it they cut small slits in it, and when it's drying the slits get open like this. And it looks a little bit like a kind of window. So we bought 8 and we made these wings, and Isabel had these cones on her legs, and she could not walk during all the performance, so she was always on the back of someone, or on a carry bag, and or straight on the ice of the stands. Which was funny there is our Italian friend. Which was strange there. Maybe you can stop here. So when we played the first time in New York, the audience was actually something like 10 years older than we had been, or the audience we met in Berlin or somewhere else. And it had very much been a theater and performance educated, live art educated public. Where when we played in Barcelona, because most of the time we play outside, and there are plenty of great spaces which are more or less outside, but you have simply everyone. So you have kids and people working there, and this was so the market is closed on Sunday. We played Sunday afternoon, And you had also people who work on the stands there in Sunday clothes, and it was really nice to play. It was like a big happy family. Really not like playing in an art place, and it was very the thing on the left down, San Miguel, Spanish beer, very important. And this is Giorgio, our Italian friend, who played a couple of years with us. We lost trace of him. Pescado. So and so. Different performance, but similar elements. Maybe you can stop here. We use this plastic foil, gold on one side, silver on the other. We got a whole case from the company. We asked, would it be possible to get some? We got more than 100, it was very nice. And we bought these sugar cones. The big ones are used in North Africa mostly. So small one we bought in Germany. And we made this performance where we stretched these foils, and they are transparent with the light from the back, and like a mirror with the light from the front. And we played at the end of the evening, so here you see it very good from downward. So actually at this moment the audience didn't see anything, just a mirror, but from down you could see, so it was very
And it
good.
was summer in Madrid. It was, this folio was totally hot. That's again Barcelona.
On a fountain. This Gotico district where we lived actually. So this column again, but made with the same plastic material.
There you can see the face of Guido.
On the left.
When we add light under the folio.
And this is where I live now. For whatever reasons. Since 13 years. Okay, this is sound installation. So Versong is a small town, around a small town, but there's a big library named after the one and only black minister in France, and they have a big space with walls they can change. So in the first I exposed photo collage works, in the second the sound installation, in the third I gave workshops with kids, something I do quite regularly. Actually, here you can stop. So there are actually, I don't know if you see, there's these crossed tubes. There have been 4 of these crossed tubes on boards, and there's plastic tubes in between. And so with these plastic tubes, everything was connected but very fragile. But it meant that when there was a sound on the left side, everything resonated and you could hear it on the other side. There have been plenty of motors, and I built very easy switches so they get on and off in the time differently. So it was not actually interactive, but there was no position where it sounded similar. All the sound, self-built speakers and things, and aquarium like a percussion instrument. This was the more realistic view when you get into the space. No black lights, but very different to other things I've done. The installation was much more in the center, and you walked around. Usually I work more against the walls, and people can move in between. But the place was better for this. You couldn't. It had been this kind of metal wall, so you couldn't hang many things. It was a technical reason also. Took me 2 weeks to set this up. But at the same time, we had a performance in an art house cinema in Caen, and I had an other exposition of drawings and paintings in Cannes. So these are the kind of motors which are used to make yogurt or sauce or something. You can find them everywhere in France. Nobody uses them anymore. They're very good. A dead pig. So, okay, glass diag. Maybe the first image. Yeah, good. So this is somehow the full turn, I can say. This is somehow the full turn. So we came back to this glass strike thing for the 20 years fall of the wall. It was somehow the pretext for it. Because the problem for us is that we talk about Europe all the time, but nobody wants to pay for a group as the members are a bit everywhere. So it's really hard to get the money together. So we had this 20 years fall of the wall pretext, which was very good because I organized with other people many other things, invited people from Germany to come, photographers and writers and other people, cinema and so on. So this performance was of course not outside and it was with an audience, but somehow we tried to recreate at least this idea of separation, because when we have done this performance in the original Gleisdreieck, the performance deals really with the separation between one person doing the performance, the other people around, but never crossing on the same level. And we amplified this. So we had Isabel and two other actors, guy for the video, this shadow plays I have done. Rainer played with one of my friends from Cannes for the music part. I didn't do the music here. This had been some of this shadow installations. So many people thought it was actually a video projection, which wasn't. So it's this glass stones, what do you think? Sagt man so, glass stone? Yeah, the glass cubes with a little structure. And I made a kind of funicular behind and little figures moving back and forth. And during the performance, I opened the different holes. In the beginning, it was black. So my very cheap video projection, without any video projector and without any camera. The two actors, additional, Isabel. You still see we had many of these colonnes which presented different areas in the space. And there's you will see maybe there's a bed, a hospital bed. And actually the two other had been really only on this hospital bed and we moved them around. It was kind of a mobile stage. This was a real video projection. So there's little features behind like this. Shadow plays. Scene during the performance. So Jean René has written, you can stop maybe here. Jean René has written a lot of texts again, 8 small sections, French and German. And the French text had been spoken by the actors, and the German text had always been presented by support, so it had been recorded, used on dictaphone or something like that. Because, well, first we didn't expect that everybody understand in France. But also we wanted to make a difference and separate these two stories again. So it was very good to have a voiceless actor and somehow disembodied voice. So this is a stage, moving stage. And you see these cartons on the bed, which is actually, they have the same form like the fish before in Barcelona. So we reused this is the same shape, but not the fish again because we didn't get it. simulation also of the saw blade we used, but so this was pretty big, and it burned better than here. So Isabel on a ladder with this wheel, and you see the fireworks much more efficient. Yeah, the usual.
That was my equipment in Cannes.
So we had a month to set up. And on the left we have, so this is the end of the room, and you see on the left it was the back. We made the photos from glass strike on tissue. And so after the performance there was an installation running for a week, 10 days. Also. So we mixed that. And we have done the same thing more or less in Amiens in January, and it was the same thing, performance and 1 week, 10 days installation. So in Amiens the space was smaller, so we arranged the thing differently.
Last image.
Last image? No, there has to be. We have seen the images of Amiens. There must be some images of Amiens.
There were two.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Wow.
saw blade and
This is the end. Okay, see you in 30 years. Yeah, but maybe it's really important to say that to get the picture. But when we moved to Barcelona, it was really the time of Antoni Tàpies. I don't know if this painter's known here. And one of the first things I've seen. So he's associated to movement, informal, and he made huge paintings. And one of the first things I saw was the painting with a chair just fixed on the canvas. So of course nobody was sitting on it. There was no movement, but it was kind of an invitation. This painting, and he has done many things like this, and I somehow feel pretty close to it. There was someone asking in the kitchen before if everything we do is really important to have this or that sound. So maybe yes. So there are of course physical phenomena. Small objects can make a loud sound, big objects can make small sounds. Important for us is we do not want to control the things so precisely, because we are doing records as well, and when we do a record, yeah, everything is exactly as we wanted. So in a performance, in a concert, we like to be surprised also by the objects we have and by the arrangements we do. And the visual part, for me, is very important as a trace for the physical effort to get a sound or an image. And I think I could never work really efficiently with something where everything is just in a kind of black box, and you just see the result, but you don't see how it's made, what's been made. And for the moment, I prefer to work with the shadow plays, paper cutouts on a motor here and there, not very different like this. Then, preparing a video before and be extremely glad that everything is perfectly synchronized.